As a child, I recited the United States Pledge of Allegiance, which states, "With liberty and justice for all." But I never really thought about its meaning until now. I don't know about you, but I don't remember the phrase "justice for all" having the added, "except if you happen to be gay." The Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA, was signed into law by President Bill Clinton on September 21, 1996. DOMA denies lawfully married same-sex couples more than 1,100 federal benefits and protections. DOMA defines marriage and spouse to refer only to the union between a man and a woman.
Well, just before we moved from New York passed marriage equality.
Same-sex marriage was legalized in New York on July 24, 2011, under the Marriage Equality Act. However, Article 3 of DOMA still prevents same-sex couples from having their relationship recognized federally for immigration purposes.
And if DOMA had not existed, Ben and I would have been married the very next day. I would have been eligible to sponsor him for a green card, and I would still be an attorney in New York, and Ben would be working wherever he wanted to work in New York, and we'd still be living in our home, and, so that's not the case for us because DOMA exists, and the result of DOMA for us meant having to uproot and move across the Atlantic. I'm from the United States. I grew up in California, and when I was 18 I moved from California to New York. I was accepted into New York University, and I stayed on living in New York for another 15 years, going to law school there, purchasing a home there, and practicing as an attorney there.
And I'm from England, from the northeast of England, from County Durham. I moved to America in 2005 and lived there for 7 years. And in January of last year, we moved back here.
I asked Brandon and Ben what their hobbies were.
Photography for me.
That's true, yeah.
I spend about 80% of my time outside of work doing photography. And you?
Well, I mean, I really like cooking and entertaining. I know it sounds a little bit silly, but we normally have a dinner party like every weekend, and it's something that I really look forward to. It's the sort of the thought that gets me through a difficult week, and it's nice to catch up with friends and have a little too much wine, and so that's something I enjoy. And I'm a big music person. I mean, that was my background before I went into law, so to go and see concerts, particularly classical music, is something that really moves me. We used to have season tickets to the Philharmonic in New York. Something that I miss, yeah.
I asked them how they met.
Go on.
It was 2005. I was studying for a semester while I was in law school here in London. And in one of the first weeks that I was here, I was at a bar in Covent Garden and met Ben at the bar. And it was just a day or 2 days after Ben had found out that he had received a job offer in New York. So I thought, well, that works because my semester will end and I'll be going back to New York soon too. So that's how we met. Our relationship carried on here in London for a couple of months before...
I left in the March of that year.
You left in March. So he went back to New York in March, and then I finished my semester in about May or June.
It was June, you got back to New York.
Yeah, I returned to New York, and we sort of picked up where we had left off.
No, it was over 8 years ago.
Yeah, 8 lucky years.
I asked Brandon and Ben what the biggest obstacle was to their being together.
Well,
my immigration status in the US.
Yeah, there's no question.
I mean, even before we considered moving here, my visa was tied to my job, obviously an H-1B visa. And there was one occasion a year into my living in America where I had to move to a different state because that's where my job went and I had to follow the job.
And that's really hard in a relationship when suddenly I find out that the person that I love is going to be leaving indefinitely, and thank God he's still in the country, but in that case it was Florida.
I couldn't move back until I found a job that was willing to sponsor me again in New York, which I did relatively quickly.
Yeah, it really takes a toll on a relationship as well, because his visa was tied to his employment. He didn't have the flexibility to change jobs as he might have otherwise have wanted to do. And obviously, things came to a head for us because those visas have expiration dates, and the way you get to stay in the country is with a green card. And I'm not legally eligible to sponsor Ben for a family-based green card. So ultimately, that led to us departing the US and starting a new life here in Britain.
I asked Brandon and Ben what the biggest sacrifice was that they had to make to stay together.
I think our life in New York and all that encompasses. I mean, Brandon's family's all in America, so he's distanced himself by, thousands of miles. All of our, a large proportion of our current friends are in New York still. So, we talk by telephone, email, occasionally Skype, but it's not like being able to go for dinner with them or go for drinks with them.
No, they don't get to participate in our lives the way that they once did.
Exactly.
My parents, with whom I'm very close, and they live in California, so the distance was already significant between New York and California, but there was only a 3-hour time difference there, and you could pick up the phone and I could get my mom or my dad. I mean, that just is not an option for us. One, the phone call alone would just bankrupt me, but two, there's an 8-hour time difference between Los Angeles and London. So, I can't call because I have an important issue I want to talk to my parents about. We have to schedule the call. It's going to be a Skype call. It's going to be this time on the Saturday morning for them, it's Saturday afternoon for us. So it means that I have to race back home because I need to be in front of my computer at that particular time. So it's just, that sort of stuff that gets in the way of relationships that you have with people who mean a lot to you.
There's the logistics aspect of it as well. There's the financial aspect of it. Moving here pretty much wiped us out savings-wise, because it costs a lot of money to move 2 lives from one country to another.
And to go a full year without an income stream, which was my circumstance. I mean, I agree with everything that you just said. The one thing that I would add was, for me, I had to give up my career, which was my chosen profession, and it was an endeavor that I had concentrated a lot of effort into, a lot of time into, and a lot of finance into. One of the things that I've been engaging in is preparing to cross-qualify to become a solicitor who's licensed to practice law in England. And it is not an easy test. I mean, it's sitting for another bar exam.
I asked Brandon and Ben if they had plans to get married in the future.
Yes. We're happily engaged. But planning a wedding is the most complicated thing I've ever conceived of. And we're at, for almost a year now, we've got almost nothing done with respect to that.
I mean, part of the problem is we've moved back to the UK and we moved house at the beginning of the year, and that alone was, a bit of a pain.
It's not legal yet in the UK, and I didn't come all this way to engage into a civil partnership with Ben. We're hoping that the House of Lords confirms what was passed in Parliament, in the Commons, and then there would be marriage equality in England, and Scotland is looking at it as well. So fingers crossed. I don't think that we would do a wedding in New York, even though we could, because it feels, at least to me, backward looking. That if I continue to associate New York as being my home, it makes it very difficult to live happily where I'm presently situated. It is not as simple as the law being passed or Article 3 of DOMA being struck down and we can just return to the US. You can't snap your fingers and get your life back. There's someone else living in our apartment that we own in New York. My job certainly wouldn't be available to me. They've hired somebody else at the law firm that I worked at. That would be the same case for you. Well, right now, US lawmakers are considering a massive immigration bill. And there is a shot for LGBT immigration equality to be a part of that bill.
The Uniting American Families Act UAFA, was introduced on February 13, 2013, in the U.S. Senate by Senator Patrick Leahy and Congressman Gerald Nadler. UAFA would allow an American citizen to sponsor his or her same-sex partner to live in the United States.
And it is but a shot.
On Tuesday, the 21st of May, 2013, the same-sex couple clause, UAFA, was removed from immigration reform legislation, 10 days after this interview took place.
It's about me as a gay American having the same rights as a heterosexual American has to sponsor the person that I love. So it seems to me an absolute no-brainer. This isn't creating a new path to citizenship. This isn't addressing undocumented aliens. This is about a law-abiding foreigner and the American who loves him. UAFA is the bridge that would bring us back, and it's great because it doesn't involve any of those hot-button issues that relate to marriage equality, because it doesn't talk about marriage at all, so it doesn't have elements of tradition or religion or any of those things that people get excited about. UAFA is purely about if I can establish that we are in a genuine relationship, and the test is just as hard as it would be for a straight married couple to prove, if not even a little harder.
Strict, yeah. Financially, you have to provide financial records.
Yeah,
and much more information on that side of it. The one upside of it coming here is that we got to stay together.
Yeah, we've met people who didn't have that luxury, and as much as I can go on about, the sacrifices and hardships that we've endured, it seems like nothing compared with the hits that these other couples have faced. It's just about getting the word out there and connecting with people, and everybody needs to share their stories so that people realize it. It's a big issue. I actually think that it is equally, if not more so, impactful to have someone who is not in the couple saying, this affects my life, and this is a wrong that needs to be corrected for that reason too. I think that would resonate with resistant lawmakers. Just ask yourself, should Americans be forced to give up their lives because they're gay and in love? It's as simple as that.
Let's let the happy ending happen before we start writing it.
Oh, well put. Yeah.
The Supreme Court will make a decision on whether or not to overturn Article 3 of DOMA at the end of June 2013. If Article 3 of DOMA is struck down, the federal government could recognize same-sex marriage for immigration purposes in the states in which it is legal. What can you do to help towards immigration equality? Call Senator Leahy at 202-224-4242 and write to Senator Klobuchar on the Immigration Equality Action Fund website to thank them for supporting LGBT immigration equality. Like and follow supporting groups on social media such as Immigration Equality, Love Exiles, the DOMA Project, Human Rights Campaign, and Freedom to Marry. And maybe binational, same-sex couples like Brandon and Ben could live happily and legally together in the United States.